I don't want to open up a whole sort of, debate about comedy and so on, but I think that this is really obvious, a distinction between irony and humor and people being sensitive or insensitive, because this is the president of the United States in an environment where there was already a paramilitary force terrorizing migrants, where children have died in ICE custody, where families have been separated, still to this day, not reunited, because of the racist terrorist policies of this administration. There are insane, crazy people at the border, deeply, deeply damaged people living out like Bruce Willis fantasies, who, their own profound, unease, fragmentation, and lack of meaning is manifesting in some sort of horrifying fantasy at the border, fueled by Donald Trump and Breitbart and Fox and all of the other sort of prime purveyors of racism, conspiracy, and poison. That's why this actually matters. And this matters from the perspective of somebody who both thinks Trump can be funny and thinks that people need to, let's just get on with beating this motherfucker. Or frankly, impeach him or don't. This is part of, I actually don't oppose impeaching Donald Trump. If they actually had a serious path, if they were not messing around and they were like, you know what? Donald Trump and his administration are regularly breaking the law and showing disdain to Congress.
They are what this was made for.
Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to impeach him. We're not going to this person called that person, and then we had a hearing, and then we did this, and we did that. In the beautiful words of Rashida Tlaib, impeach the motherfucker or don't. And if you're not, then we've got to beat him, and that's it. And I'm not going to freak out over every last this and that. But this matters because this is a wink. In my opinion, this is a wink to murder.
I mean, when you have 15,000 people marching up and you have hundreds and hundreds of people and you have 2 or 3 border security people that are brave and great, and don't forget, we don't let them, and we can't let them use weapons. We can't. Other countries do. We can't. I would never do that. But how do you stop these people? You can't. There's no...
Pause it. So the person said, shoot him from the audience.
Yeah, you can hear it.
Okay.
But how do you stop these people? You can't. There's no... That's only in the panhandle you can get away with that statement.
Even the woman behind him, right to the left, she's doing the E.
Right, yeah. right.
It's only in the panhandle you can get away with that statement.
He's like, oh, you.
These people are cheering.
Only in the panhandle. So it's a tough situation, but...
These people are cheering murdering unarmed migrants. These people are cheering somebody who said, I'm escaping a paramilitary that might murder me. By the way, I'll be covering this later, but there's an incredible piece in Harper's, reported piece on a process that began, I think, in 2009, where a former leader of one of the leftist guerrilla organizations who had gone on to run a small business after the Civil War stopped and dealt with gangs because he had to pay them extortion and stuff. And then a former leader of the military teamed up to create a peace process for gangs in El Salvador that yielded big results. That guy is now in jail because the current government has decided that it wasn't a peace process. It was a pro-gang scheme. And violence has re-exploded. In the interview in that prison, he holds the United States primarily responsible for asserting that you need to get back to get tough policies. So again, our policy set is always at the center of these things. I'm saying people make their own decisions. Countries have their own problems. It's not all reducible to one thing. But we're always involved. And, so take somebody who's fleeing that situation. You've at this point heard endless amount of stories about what that actually means. They're joking about killing one of those people. I've just scrapped my way to get to the U.S.-Mexico border, which I already know the United States is run by a fucking scumbag clown fascist who has empowered a paramilitary organization to terrorize people like me, that they're totally violating every type of norm on refugees. And I'm here because I literally have no choice but to leave and maybe get my neck slit. These people are joking about shooting him in the face. That's great. Here is and by the way, I mean, like, literally, like, this is one of the reasons why you should sometimes reserve your moral outrage, because that requires moral outrage.
Yeah.
Not everything does. A lot of things don't, in my opinion. But that's something you need to be clear about. That is disgusting. That is canceling of any basic human sentiment you're supposed to have. Your wiring's off if you think that's funny.
Yeah, it's such a disgusting trope, and it's an old one that we've been seeing for many decades.
Definitely.
Anytime that the government needs to paint some people as the other, as less than human, so that we can kill them in a war, terrorize them at the border,
concentrate them
into camps, score some political points. It's disgusting, and it goes back to that Jean Raspail Camp of the Saints shit in the 1970s. That book in which the immigrants to the West, which is, by the way, a very recent concept and not something that has always existed. They're just portrayed as this like brown invading horde, and like the descriptions of them are like some of the most disgusting racist things I've ever read. And I don't think that Trump has read that book, but I do know that Steve Bannon has read that book.
Publicly says it's one of his favorite books.
Tucker Carlson has read that book, and these ideas are filtering into this administration.
Definitely. Or they could all just be trying to have fun.
Former Chief of Staff to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Josh, welcome back and good morning to you. Strikes me the campaign kicked off last night. Did you get a sense of that?
Yeah, no question. And I think there's a good golden rule of politics. It's the candidate who looks like he's having the most fun is usually the one that's winning. And the contrast there from President Trump and his rally last night in Florida, I mean, everybody seemed to be having a lot of fun. And you can contrast that with how these 2020ers have been marching around the country in this sort of dour mood, full of negativity. And so, I think you're right. The campaign has started, and I think it looks okay.
These are psychopaths.
Humor sells, right? I mean,
it does.
It's very underrated, Josh.
It is. And nobody does it better than President Trump. It starts with the nicknames, but he also just keeps it light. I mean, these got to be the first entertaining rallies in the history of politics. I mean, mostly these things are pretty dry, and it's all about speaking to the partisans. But, I mean, I think most people can watch this and be entertained.
Well, I think we had some very entertaining
but I think,
excuse
me, I mean, maybe Americans don't appreciate the effort we put into art and design.
The sports
yes, but I think a lot of people in the flames would come up.
Have you never seen Triumph of the Will?
Yeah. No, you wouldn't, because you're fucking American pigs who don't like art.
It didn't even have any choreography there.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, these guys are psychopaths. And secondly, yes, the campaign started. You're going to hear a hell of a lot more of this. Absolutely. And thirdly, Chief of Staff to Mitch McConnell, there's people to this day who still want to make a distinction between Donald Trump and the Republican Party. And you know who the lead person in the country is right now who wants to distinguish between Donald Trump and the Republican Party?
Biden.
Fucking Biden. Recognize how delusional and dangerous that is. And again, just as Bhaskar Sunkara cut an ad for Bernie Sanders, and the point he made, I've been making for a very long time. I think Joe Biden probably would beat Donald Trump. I do. I don't undermine. From the beginning, I think I've usually been one in the room who's like, guys, I get we all hate him, but this guy is super formidable as a candidate. But you know what? After 2 years of Joe Biden telling millennials he doesn't have empathy for them and trying to reimpose the Davos agenda on us, all of the symptoms, all of the poison, Bill Fletcher Jr., right-wing populism is the herpes of capitalism. That stuff is not going anywhere. It's only going to metastasize. It does not start and end with Donald Trump. Think strategically. Think historically.
If there's a route Joe Biden could take to lose, he's taking it.
That's also totally true. That's also totally true. Yes, and as the Democratic Party, I mean, if anybody could snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, it's them.
Dead ass.